The Angels tried and they failed to come from behind and win the game last night.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Sam Aldegheri was on the mound last night for the Halos, and we've got our evaluation of his performance. Was this Kyle Hendricks signing, was it good? Was it a good signing by Perry Manassian? We'll discuss that. And the challenge system is coming in 2026, so do you think this will impact the Halos and maybe stop their habit of striking out so many times? Before we talk about the Angels, we want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, Mike and I have been talking Angels baseball with you every single Monday through Friday for the last 4 years. I was just trying to think in my head, how many episodes would that be? But it's a lot, and we appreciate you being here each and every weekday talking Angels baseball. Mike, the Angels tried to come back and win it last night, but they fell short, and we're going to get into that and give everybody our takeaways from this first game against the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, let me take you to the top of the ninth. That's our first takeaway. The Angels tried to rally in the ninth. They waited until the very end of the game to try to rally. Taylor Ward led off the inning with his 35th home run of the season. Boy, his stat line is going to look great in the offseason after this. We flush this season away, right?
He's up there with Trout and Mo Vaughn and Garrett Anderson. They were really trying to sell that hard on the broadcast, weren't they?
Yep. Jo Adell singled to right field. Good to see him go the opposite way. And then our boy Logan O'Hoppe drew a walk and a really good at bat. And then Peraza hits into a double play. Now, the Angels did get a second run on a pass ball, and then Christian Moore grounded out. Jon, the Angels pinch hit all the time in these moments with Bryce Teodosio at the plate. But then when Oswald Peraza comes up, they're like, no, we want him. This is the guy we want at the plate right now. This is the bat we want at the plate. It doesn't make sense to me. Like their decision making, like you want a guy like a Teodosio, and we'll talk about his home run in just a moment. You want a guy like Teodosio to learn and to grow and to develop. But when it comes to some of the big moments at the plate, you take him out, put in Matthew Lugo. You take out Teodosio, who maybe could lay down a bunt or who maybe can make, easy contact for a Matthew Lugo who strikes out a lot. But when it comes to Peraza, who does strike out a lot and does not have a good bat at the moment, they don't make a move. It's confusing, right? Are we managing to win? Are we not managing to win? By the way, it felt like Ray Montgomery kind of waved the white flag.
Oh, 100%
in this game. I mean, lots of frustrations, but talk to me, Jon. Talk to me about the pinch hit and talk to me about waving the white flag.
Yeah, Peraza, I think in that moment, Mike, he does have a tendency to go the other way, and I think that that's something that you could expect out of him, especially from a lefty pitcher on the mound. That was one of the thoughts I had, with a lefty on the mound. That's probably why they didn't go to like a Moncada. Rengifo could have been used in that situation, but with Peraza, I guess, they're trying to give him the moment. He's somebody who's going to be part of the future Angels here in the next couple of years. So perhaps that's why they're giving him the moment. Doesn't make sense though why it's okay to give him the moment and not somebody like Teodosio, which we've seen many, many times at the end of this season.
Yeah. Now the wave, the white flag moment, it just felt like they kind of surrendered and just kind of gave up, bringing in Urena to kind of clean up the end. It just felt like, oh, we're not going to come back. We're not going to win this game. and that was frustrating to watch.
It was 5-2.
Right. That was really frustrating to watch. It was 3-2 at one point, and it felt like they just kind of were like, all right, we're all done. Second takeaway, by the way, is Sam Aldegheri did start this game. Jon went 4 2/3, gave up 7 hits, 3 runs, walked 2, struck out 3, had a rough first inning, gave up 3 hits, 2 runs, and he walked a batter. Then innings 2, 3, and 4, he allowed just 2 hits and no runs. And then in the 5th inning, he allowed 2 hits, hit a batter, and 1 earned run. There's been a lot of discussion about Aldegheri's development. Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register wrote an interesting article about Sam. Here's what he had to say, that Sam Aldegheri, who started last night, said his 2-inning mop-up performance in July was a key learning moment for him. Aldegheri, who has been called up to provide length in the bullpen, gave up 5 hits and walked 4 against the Rangers on July 8th. He said after the Texas game, I knew something was wrong. I went down and I was like, okay, now we've got to switch the page and change something because that's not who I am. So he goes back to Double-A, Rocket City, with an approach to be more aggressive in the strike zone and focus on quick outs and not strikeouts. And since then, had a 2.52 ERA in 10 minor league starts, including one in AAA Salt Lake. So, John, did you see any of that quick outs, attacking the strike zone in the start last night with Sam Aldegheri?
Yeah, he was definitely attacking the strike zone more, and I think that's why he did get hit around in that first inning where the Royals were able to put up 2 against him. But when I think about it, that's the biggest change here, right? 2 walks, Mike, 3 strikeouts, trying to get quick outs, but sometimes you're going to have to get a quick out off the bat of Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez, and those guys are really, really good hitters. And so there were some key, hits that didn't really go his way either in terms of, the defense behind him. I know there was the pass ball that allowed the run to score. So I think that first inning looked worse for the team as much as it did Aldegheri, because then he settled down and pitched very well the rest of the way. But yeah, that's a symptom of being around the strike zone is, you're going to give up some hits, and you're going to hope that those hits are on the ground. You're going to hope that those hits are to somebody. And they found gaps. They found the holes in the infield. And that's kind of what happened to Aldegheri here. But you know what? I'll take that over 6 walks and things like that. And the fact that he only had 2 across his outing. I thought it was a good reappearance for Aldegheri, especially given what we had seen in his mop-up role. But I guess he's ruined. I guess his career's over for having that mop-up. No, credit to him for to have that mop-up role and then figure out you know what? Something's not right here.
And then learning. And that's what I love about Sam. I love that he's like, I knew what I needed to do. And for our everydayers that say, hey, let the kids play, let's figure out what we got. This is what you get when you let the kids play. They're figuring out at the major league level how to adjust. And this ended up being a great start. I would have liked to see him at least finish 5. Again, it's weird. It's weird management. It's just weird management, right? We're not going to pinch hit, but we are going to bring in a guy once we get down 5-2 and who's going to be just kind of the mop up guy. And it's weird management, in my opinion. And I had enough to say about Ray Montgomery yesterday. In fact, you see one of the everydayers yesterday was laughing at me because I said, it's the Rockies for crying out loud. Let him go. Wait, it was the Brewers? It's the Brewers for crying out loud. Let him go. Right?
Exactly. Mike, the third takeaway was Bryce Teodosio hit his first major league home run. It came in the bottom of the 5th inning with the Angels down 3-0. He hit the ball to deep left into the bullpen. Angels now have 219 home runs on the season. Now we like Bryce, but do the Angels like him enough to give him a 2026 roster spot? What do you say?
I think they should. I don't see why they wouldn't. Like 4th outfielder, maybe. I mean,
I'm
thinking Ward. I'm thinking
Adell.
You got Adell out there. You've got Soler, who's going to be in the mix, and Mike Trout. Trout's not going to play the outfield, although they'll probably try to get him to play the outfield. That would be my only concern is you've got these 4 rotating in and out, and they're like, well, we don't have room for Teodosio. We need another infielder. We need a backup here. And so I can see why Teodosio may not be somebody that would be on the roster in 2026 because they're going to try to compete, right? They're going to try to go for it. And they have to prioritize some of these, can we call them like slogs, like the Solers and the Trouts that can't really do much now, right? Like they're kind of bricks in the outfield right now.
Soler to me is going to get traded in the offseason. He's going to be a DH for somebody else. I don't know where he'll end up, but he's got 1 year left. Not that expensive, can be productive somewhere else. I think if the Angels end up going that route, you see them signing some sort of outfielder to play, and really makes you go, boy, Mickey Moniak looked pretty good in that Rocky series over the weekend. And had they not signed Soler, we probably would have seen a lot more of him this season. Now, I say that knowing I've seen the splits. Yes. I've seen the home and away splits for Mickey Moniak. But
they are wild. They are wild splits, by the way. It
makes sense.
Huge numbers, home run numbers, power numbers, and a high batting average in Colorado. On the road, very Mickey Moniak, what we experienced in Anaheim the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I would not be surprised to see Soler move to a different spot over the offseason. Mike, 4th takeaway, Angels are now 70 strikeouts away from the single season record. Not a good record.
We're doing it.
They struck out 13 times last night. Look, Cole Reagan's one of my favorite pitchers, one of my favorite players in the game, struck out 10
Mm-hmm.
across 5 innings. Now, Cole Reagans, don't get me wrong, he's great at getting the strikeout, but 10 in 5 innings where, the first 6 outs that he got in the game came via the strikeout, like good grief, man. So the Angels now sit on 1,584 on the season. The record, by the way, is 1,654 set by the Minnesota Twins in 2023. The Angels are 70 away. Are they going to get there by the end of the season? What do you think is going to happen?
They have 5 games left? And so they would have to strike out more than 10 times in each of those games.
Right.
What, like 13 times in each of those games? Quick math. Like that. I mean, I go, yeah, I can't see why they wouldn't get there. Yeah. If they have a really good game where they don't strike out a lot, then I don't think they'll get there. But they have to have at least in the next 5 games, have to have at least one game where they don't have double-digit strikeouts. And then I think that they won't break that record.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here. 65 would be 5 times 13. Who's making me do math on the show? So yeah, even if they did 13 times across the next 5 games, they'd be just short. So please do not set that record. It's already an indictment on this coaching staff anyway.
Although if that is on the resume,
true,
I think it could be beneficial in wiping the slate clean. And we're going to talk about the Angels and their strikeouts and what they said they're trying to do about it on tomorrow's show. But it might be good, right? Like,
yeah,
hey, like we struck out. And again, Johnny Washington, last time he was a hitting coach with the Padres, 2019, guess what? They led the league in strikeouts.
Yeah.
So this is what you get with Johnny Washington as your hitting coach. So good or bad, they have to make that decision. We think bad. Angel fans think bad, but we'll see what Artie and Perry and the front office have to say.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, Kyle Hendricks. There were some rumors going around about his retirement. Was he a good signing by Perry Manassian? We're going to discuss that and much more coming right up.
Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette. This isn't another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Rougiette combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. And the process is really simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor. It's 100% online. And if prescribed, your treatments shipped to you discreetly right to your front door. So if you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rougiette.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, but sometimes getting tickets, that can be the tough part. There's queues, there's login screens, there's surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it. And that's why we use Game Time here at Locked On Angels and the Locked On Podcast Network. It gives the advantage back to the fans when it comes to buying tickets. It's fast, it's easy, and it's backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay, and it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that Mike and I like to get tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply, but the promo code is LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can check us out wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're watching or listening. We'd love for you to get in on the conversation. Find today's show on YouTube and get into the comment section. Let us know your thoughts. And while you're there, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also talk with us and interact with us on social media, or send us a DM at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. We'd love your thoughts on today's discussion, or just stop in and say hi to the Super Halo Bros.
There was a lot of rumors swirling about Kyle Hendricks over the weekend, and I feel like we're getting boobed by Bob Nightingale, Nightingale, because he was the one who reported that Hendricks has told friends that he's going to retire at the end of the season. However, our very own Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register had a conversation with Kyle Hendricks over the weekend, and Hendricks wasn't ready to make that decision. So before we get into the rumor mill and whatnot, Kyle Hendricks his last start against the Rockies was one of the best he's had all season. It was 7 innings strong, his 300th career start, struck out 5, didn't walk anybody, and he scattered just 3 singles. Not easy to do in Colorado. He mostly kept the ball on the ground. The defense took care of the rest behind him. He was coming off one of the worst starts of his career, Mike, a game where he allowed 9 runs in just 3 1/3 innings to Seattle. And that came just after his other best start of the season, 7 scoreless innings against the Minnesota Twins. And honestly, doesn't that feel like how this season has gone for Kyle Hendricks? Really good in a few starts and not so good in the other starts.
Yeah. Now, again, you mentioned we got word that he could potentially retire at the end of the year. There really hasn't been an announcement. Jeff Fletcher did talk with him, and it seems like that might not be the full story. He's likely going to get one more start this week with the Angels, so we'll get to see him at least one more time. John, you and I were kind of meh about this signing at the start of the year because
we were confused
and kerfluffled and frustrated, right? Like there was a lot of words we could use to describe this because this is a signing that a team that's trying to push for competitiveness and trying to push for the playoffs, this is a signing that they don't make. Now, you and I have talked about why this signing was necessary. It was necessary because they needed guys to eat some innings, and they needed guys that could go out there on a regular basis. That's why Tyler Anderson is here. That's why Kyle Hendricks was signed. But he's not a guy that's going to get you anywhere. He's a guy that can kind of just help you to make it through some of the what they call dog days of summer. How would you describe the Hendricks signing now with just one start left potentially and the end of the season this Sunday?
I think it went about as good as it could have gone, Mike, considering how he had a rough season last year, was in and out of the bullpen, and was dealing with injuries and whatnot. You knew you weren't going to get prime Kyle Hendricks, but when you sign somebody for the back of your rotation to get you, 180 innings, that's the thing about the Angels is they haven't had anybody hit that number of innings in a long, long time. Tyler Anderson finally did it last year as an Angel, and that's kind of the new 200. I say that all the time on the show, that 180 innings, given the way that pitchers are used this day and age, 180 innings is kind of the new 200 innings. And so for Kyle Hendricks to come in and do what he did, I think he did good enough as Kyle Hendricks, as 35-year-old Kyle Hendricks, who's, not World Series prime Cubs Kyle Hendricks, right? But I also think that he had a lot to offer to the starting rotation in terms of mentorship. Now, I get tired of the conversations we have about, this guy's going to be a great mentor. He's going to come in, he's going to help these young guys and That's fine. But how long have we heard that? We've heard that before we even started doing Locked On Angels about this person and that person and this person. And that's always been the Angels' excuse for signing these fringe guys on the edges. Oh, they're going to come in and they're going to really help out this outfield. Or they're going to come in and really help out this bullpen. Now, Kenley Jansen is somebody who made this team competitive and had a lot to offer the bullpen, and also had a lot to offer the infield behind him, right? Because he's telling these guys where to stand and what to do. And I don't care about that guy on second, just focus on getting the out over at first base. I loved that. But when it comes to Kyle Hendricks, look, $2.5 million is not that expensive in baseball terms, right? And so for him to come in at that price, at that cost, get to pitch where he grew up, fine. It was fine. And again, he's there to eat innings. Sometimes they were effective innings. Sometimes they were not. And when he was on, he was on. And when he was sharp, he was sharp. But then the days that he was not, well, you could really see it. And that, recent example against the Mariners really showed us what he looks like when he just doesn't have it. Right.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that this was it is what it is kind of signing, eat some innings. And we got the best version of Kyle Hendricks that we could possibly get at the age that he is. I'm just really sick and tired of signing people to really help the young guys, right? Because what we've experienced in the last few years is that it really doesn't help the young guys at all because, and maybe there's some in-house stuff that's happening and maybe we're going to see the effects of that in a couple of years. The only person that has actually really helped this team and I think help the young guys is Kenley Jansen, John.
Yeah,
and so I would love to have Kenley back next year, but I don't think the Angels should re-sign Kyle Hendricks. I'm glad that they got him this year. I think he did get through some of those tough innings, but this is not a signing that I want to see the Angels continue to do, although I think that it's going to be the same thing that they do because they don't change their strategy at all. I will be pleasantly surprised if they do. If they get rid of the coaching staff, if they go after some bigger names, if they go after like quality players that are good right now, not players that were good a few years ago, I will be pleasantly surprised this offseason. I'm just not hopeful for it because they've done the same thing every single year, every single time. And they're going to need guys to eat some innings, or else they're going to rely on guys that haven't proven themselves that are going to be in this starting rotation in 2026. And so whatever they decide to do, it will be interesting because the Angels like to keep things interesting around here.
Yeah, and not in the fun way interesting, right? Now, remember, early on this season, no, it was spring training. We came in just to the season, and you and I were having a discussion in spring training, and I brought this up. I said, Mike, off the top of my head, there's one thing I'm concerned about, and that's the fact that Tyler Anderson and Kyle Hendricks are going to go back-to-back in this rotation. And sure enough, you got a lefty ground ball pitcher and a righty ground ball pitcher. And I think and then on the other side of that, you had Jack Kohanowitz and Jose Soriano kind of being the same similar pitcher too. They went back-to-back and took the Angels, about a month and a half to move some of that around so that these guys weren't doubling up on the same kind of pitcher against the same team in a series. I just think that was a huge oversight. I'm glad they corrected it, but I mentioned how we felt vindicated yesterday regarding Logan O'Hoppy's comments and everything. And I feel a little bit vindicated about that too, because that was a huge concern I had coming in, because you're giving the team the same look on the mound. A guy who doesn't throw a fastball very hard, tries to induce ground balls, and really has to work the changeup to get guys out. And so all of that to say, when you see that twice in a row, back-to-back nights, that's not a good thing. And it just goes to show the lack of foresight. It's the epitome of, we hadn't thought that far ahead, which is, Ron said that once, but it really feels thematic for a lot of this season, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about we can see this stuff from our podcast, right? I have a full-time job. You have a full-time job. This is our side hustle, right? And we can see this. Yeah. And the fact that they then go, hey, you know what? Maybe we should make a move. A month into the season, it's just, that's why this team is so frustrating and irritating. And they didn't set Kyle Hendricks up or Jack Kohanowitz up or even Tyler Anderson up, Jose Soriano up for success, because they're just doing copy and paste, repeat. It's the same type of pitcher. It's just maddening to be able to call this stuff out from the sidelines.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're experts at this, but maybe we just need that title, John. Maybe you and I and our everydayers need to say we're experts, because we've had people diagnose issues in the comments, right? And that's the wild thing about this team. And it's wild about how we can see things that they just can't see.
Yeah. And this isn't new either. This has been the last 10 years of Angels baseball, where fans can go, hey, what looks incorrect to me is A, B, and C. And eventually the Angels go, oh, you know what? That's right. I mean, not that they're listening to us, but the fact is that we see it, our everydayers see it, Angel fans see it, and it's just maddening that the Angels don't see it more often than not.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making it so easy to get in on all of the action. If you're a new customer, you can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Of course, I love using FanDuel. It fits how I like to bet. I love player props. I love building a same-game parlay, even jumping in as the live action unfolds. That's the most fun, to make a bet as you're watching the game going, I think this guy's gonna, and then you can make a bet on that and see if you win. FanDuel's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. Just don't get carried away because you're watching your team, you're getting excited. Then FanDuel gets you more excited. Careful with that heart, okay? So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app right now. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Mike, this year you and I were invited to be part of the first ever MLB Fan Council, where Major League Baseball invited super fans from all over the place, fans of different teams, fans on social media. We were lucky enough to be invited earlier this year. One of the first conversations we had as a fan council was about the automated ball and strike challenge system that MLB is going to implement in 2026. And you and I felt like after that first conversation that it was a given. It was like, yeah, this is happening. We've even spoken on the show, assuming that that's going to be the case. It was like, yeah, it's going to be here next season. Don't worry. They're not going to, tiptoe around it. And so we finally got the official word that the challenge system specifically, not a fully automated umpire, but the challenge system where you can argue balls and strikes is going to be implemented. Give us a rundown of some of these rules, Mike.
Yeah, each team will get 2 challenges, and they'll keep them if they're successful. So 2 challenges for each team. You win, you keep your challenge. You lose your challenge. Challenges can only be initiated by a pitcher, catcher, or batter at the request that comes right at the pitch. So you have to, once the pitch hits, you have to make that request right then.
No dilly-dallying.
Right. And it's similar to what we saw in spring training, and it's what we've seen at AAA as well. To signal the challenge, the pitcher or the catcher or the batter got to tap the hat or the helmet to let the umpire know. No help from the dugout or any other players on the field is allowed. And each extra inning, the team will be awarded a challenge if it has none remaining entering the inning. So I do like that. Now, the plan is to have cameras set up around the perimeter of the track, of the field to the track, to track the location of each pitch, and a graphic on the scoreboard shows the results of the challenge. So nothing new, nothing surprising, everything that we saw and experienced, again, in spring training and at AAA. John, this brings up all kinds of interesting questions. Questions about framing, questions about failed challenges, questions about how it'll impact the Angels and their habit of swinging and missing. So I would love to tackle each one quickly. One of the conversations that you and I have had off the air, because we're nerds and we love baseball, is pitch framing. And we know that Logan O'Hoppe has not been great at pitch framing this year, according to the stats. How does this change the game for pitch framing? Do you think that that's even going to be a discussion in 2026?
I like what Wayne Randazzo had to say on the broadcast last night. And essentially it was this: if a catcher is a good framer, that's going to lead to possibly the batter challenging something that they shouldn't be challenging, right? Because, they might have framed it well and they might have pulled it back. And so, they can get caught in that situation. But if you're framing it up well, you might fool that hitter into wasting a challenge in that moment. And we've seen hitters use their challenge and get it wrong. The cool thing is that all the data that's come out about the challenge system so far is about 50-50.
Yeah.
50% right, 50% wrong. That's basically perfect, Mike. I think that you should have right and wrong calls right down the middle. And I think that that's really cool to see. You mentioned one of the rules here about no help from the dugout or other players on the field is allowed. I wonder how much that's going to silence a dugout when they're mad about the calls that an umpire is making. Yeah. Because you don't want to disrupt or interrupt the chance for a hitter or a pitcher or a catcher to make that decision on their own. Because if somebody barks and the catcher's in the middle of tapping his head, you might screw that up. You might not get that challenge because somebody from the dugout was barking. Having said that, and this is something that I brought up on the show before, I'm interested to see how this challenge system will influence the umpires behind the dish. Because if they're calling a terrible game, right now the only thing you can do is bark at them from the dugout, get in their face, and the manager gets thrown out, and maybe that sort of whips them into shape, but it's not really a concrete thing. It's not really a for sure thing. But if you've got, Doug Eddings behind the dish and he hates the Angels, and you repeatedly get his calls overturned, kind of makes you wonder if Mr. Eddings will shape up and try to be a bit better because he's had so many of his calls overturned against the Angels. And obviously he's doing it intentionally and on purpose and, has maliciousness in his heart for the Angels, malintent, right? But what I'm saying is now you actually have a way to impact the way an umpire calls behind the dish, because if they're getting it wrong, then they got to change their ways. They got to change the way that they're set up. They got to do something, because they can't continue to get it wrong and be embarrassed by these players making challenges, right?
I look forward to that next year, John, especially with some of those umps that are just not great. Some of those umps that are just not, their scorecards are terrible. I look forward to the players like, nope, that was a ball. And then the ump calling it and it was a ball. And then he calls a strike and it was a ball again. Nope, that was a ball. I look forward to those moments. So it'll be interesting to see how much freedom that the players will take at the plate. Like if it's a terrible game and the ump is calling a terrible game and it's like back-to-back pitches, if I'm a player, I'm like, nope, I'm not letting this guy get away with that, especially if you know that it's not a good pitch. And then it'll be interesting too with players like a Mike Trout, who knows the strike zone really well. Will he, if it's a ball that was called a strike, will he do anything about it, or will he just continue with, the at bat going, nah, it's all right. I'm good with 2 strikes, right? Like that's what I hope doesn't happen, especially with the Angels, because this team needs some help when it comes to their strikeouts. And this is really going to be about what they don't swing at. What the Angels really need to adjust is their habit of swinging at everything, right?
Yeah.
And so this I think can be a game changer for a lot of teams. And the other concern that I have is, you remember, it was 2 years ago, Sean O'Well complaining and griping about strikes that were strikes, and so
and he's gotten a lot better at that. This year
has been a lot better. So that's the part that I will pay attention to, not necessarily Sean O'Well. Love you, Nolan. But the truth is, I think there are going to be some players that they gripe and they're not, that's not a strike, and call it, and then end up losing that challenge. But as you mentioned, it's been 50-50 across the board. So a lot goes into play with the challenge in 2026.
On the other part of it is, what's the Angels' 2-strike approach going to be? Are they going to foul off things, or are they going to trust their eye at the plate? Because a lot of times this season, Mike, I got to say, there have been pitches on the edges that have been called strikes that weren't strikes. And so are they going to swing at those pitches that are borderline?
Yeah.
Or are they going to do their best to take the call and challenge it and trust that they got it right? I don't know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, obviously you want to win the challenge. Obviously you want to get that right, but I still don't want that to, here's what I mean to say. I don't want the challenge system to take away a 2-strike approach that the Angels should be having, if that makes sense. Because one, if it's out and away from you as a right-handed hitter, take it the other way, right? Hit it to right field for a change, because they don't do that enough already. And so if they sit back and rely on getting a challenge right, oh, you went from 0-2 to 1-2. Congratulations. Good job. Instead of fouling off a pitch or taking it the other way, hey, you still got 2 more pitches to play with there, 3 more pitches to play with there, and you got to be careful about that. So I guess my biggest concern is what's going to become of their 2-strike approach, knowing that they have the challenge system in their back pocket. Obviously, I think they'll get some of those calls right, but I don't want them to rely on that so much that any kind of 2-strike approach, and especially going the other way, is taken out of the game plan. Obviously, if that's going to change, then that also means our hitting coach has to change as well. So there's a lot to be determined for the Angels as we head into 2026, especially when it comes to the challenge system next year.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale, and you can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show, get in the comments section on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button while you're there as well. Really helps us out, and we really love to have you be an everydayer with us. Mike, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show?
Speaking of strikeouts, the Angels strike out a lot, and they want to do something about it, specifically this offseason. And they talked about it. They told Jeff Fletcher about it, and we're going to share what they shared tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
There should be a FanDuel app about how many times we have to lean out of the camera and cough. Man, it was world record this time.
Right now. I'm so sick.